first, what is chemistry? Well, chemistry is the complex emotional or psychological interaction and resonance between two entities. So you might think that the way the lines have been cut here is simply to fit in the screen, but no. I purposefully make sure that we have three lines: one to define and to explain, or to focus on the part that is complex, emotional, psychological. The second part, that's what we're talking about here: interaction and resonance. And then finally, between two entities, the entity being the user and your store, or you as a merchant. And you see there's not three, not four entities, there's really two. So we're going to go into each of those details because every single word matter. So the first question that you can ask yourself between marketing, product, sales is really like those questions one by one that are kind of hierarchical. But when you bring someone after a great ad campaign, or after, I don't know, some great marketing in your store, what are you really answering, or what should you answer here? One, does your brand resonate with the people that are coming? Two, do your product resonates? Because having a brand that speak is one thing. Having a whole set of products that are actually relevant for the user based on a specific time, Christmas, Black Friday, etc., is another one. Does your message resonate? So this one is like a mix of the brands and the product. And then finally, does your site experience really resonate? And we here talk about those resonance, but like, do you really speak to the right people with the right message and with the right tone? And this is really all about making them feel special and trying to nurture this chemistry down the road. So chemistry would be all about that. Now, if you have an answer to all those questions, that's fantastic, and we can pass on to the rest. But if you don't, then the real first question you need to ask yourself is more like, what do I have as tool and as elements with my relationship with the customers to answer those questions? So everything as branding is you and finding yourself, but everything is like product, message, and experience is really based on the users and who is coming and how are they behaving. So what's interesting with that is the concept of maybe being personal. And being personal is, again, insisting on the fact that there's two entities, the user and the store. But how can you be personal, and how is that difficult for a merchant today? When one, your customers can't really find the product because what they heard on the advertising or on the marketing campaign is not necessarily what they see when they arrive on the homepage. Two, even if you know who they are and you know where they're coming from, well, with GDPR compliances and SOC 2 compliances, you're losing most of these kind of identification. So you deal with new and anonymized users. So you go back to square one. Like, okay, well, I can't remember who you are because my cookies have been depreciated. So how could I make sure that I nurture this chemistry, or even create one if you're a completely new user? And that actually is directly linked to the number 3, which is cookie being phased out. The customers are also more and more, let's say, conscious or aware about what you can do and what you can do. And there is then a thin line when people want to work towards chemistry to not being too creepy, and therefore to balance how personal they can be without making them feel that they've been spying on the end user. So this is really a matter here about feeling and how you make people feel, making them feel welcomed and making them feel like you are tailoring your experience to them without making them feel that you are actually overstepping your boundaries and following there where they go afterwards and knowing where they live, etc. And that's even more complicated when you want to do something with emails and SMS, because emails and SMS are a next step of experience, which is above and beyond the store that you have. It's not where the user come to see you, it's where you go to see them. And so this is a moment, emails and SMS, where you have to be excessively cautious about, well, one, not wasting them time and not spamming them, but also really being personal enough, but not too much, to make sure that you create the right relationship and nurture the right chemistry. So how do we do that? And then what tools do we have at our disposal to do that? Well, for a long time, personalization has been focused on showing just what's trendy. That's something that everybody can do, but there's nothing personal here. It's the same for everybody. Recently, View is something that's like a little bit more crafty, because it's just about remembering what they've been doing and showing them that you remember what they've been doing. So this is like a first step towards being personal. But this is still like just in history, right? There's nothing that goes above and beyond that. Then you have common recommendation, which is what most common recommendation systems use, like other people like you did that, or here are products that are similar to you. And the thing that you really want to actually get to nowadays when it comes to also translating that and transferring that knowledge and all this information from a website experience to an email and SMS is focusing on the behavior of your user. And I would like to emphasize that point around behavior base, which is really focusing on what they're doing without necessarily remembering who they are. And if you can nail that, then you can nail that for any kind of new session or anonymized session or any person that disregarded or removed the cookies, or even changing, like, let's say, hardware to go visit your store, because you could actually track them on a computer and then they use a phone. And most of the e-commerce store, actually, people log in only at the end. So you handle a lot of the time new or anonymized user. And the behavior base is important because it has to be done on an individual level. One thing that we explain or we work on a lot at Crossing Minds when it comes to behavior-based recommendation and personalization is how do you interpret and really analyze what's happening in real time, so less than 200 milliseconds on the website, and making sure that this is properly evaluated individual per individual. What I'm meaning is, like, 2 clicks don't worth the same thing. You could have someone as a frantic clicker and just click on everything that moves and is shiny on the website, and then only purchase one thing that you never have guessed that they actually purchased that because it's what they were initially here for, versus someone that come on the website and click and purchase and then is gone. Here, you have the exact same, let's take Google Analytics, the exact same Google Analytics event of a click, but put back in the context, this is something that actually means 2 different things. We had this experience that was actually kind of interesting with Hulu, the streaming platform, where we had 2 users that actually spent 3-4 hours really looking at a season, a TV show. And we assumed right away that was like an 8 out of 10, like they kind of liked it. So let's follow up with an email about, like, hey, here are the next episode for that thing, or an SMS on that end. And both of the response were kind of disappointing, and that pushed us actually into understanding when we went wrong with this kind of personalization and recommendation. Like, was it the timing of sending the emails and SMS? Was it the content of the email and SMS? Did we follow up on the wrong show? And the model was fine because it was working for 99% of the rest of the consumer base. But the more we digged into those user behavior, the more we realized, like, those 2 were actually extremely different. One person simply never watches TV. Therefore, spending 3 hours on a TV show was a declaration of love. And here, this is something you need to absolutely capitalize on, because that's an unusual type of behavior that needs to be leveraged by communication and by customer experience, or through customer experience. And the other user, on the other hand, had the TV on 24/7. So for them, 3 or 4 hours on a TV show doesn't mean anything at all. And therefore, if anything would just bother them and bug them with an email and SMS about a TV show that they don't even remember having it on because they're not in front of the TV. So here you have, simply, in a very understandable fashion, how the first step that you need to do is digging into or accessing this free data that Google Analytics have, or that other system or e-commerce platform have, even on Shopify, and just appreciate and evaluate how unique are your customers, and therefore have a personalization system that can be plugged into many of your, let's say, platform, web, brick and mortar, email, SMS, etc., to make sure that you personalize the experience appropriately to what the customer have been doing, and what's their behavior in general. But that's one of the things that you start to need to do when it comes to chemistry. It's really about listening to the user, and not just listening at an action isolated, but listening to a user and the patterns in its globality.